welcome to Taste the World. In this episode, we will be visiting the beautiful country of France and making some delicious macarons. Devin, can you try that?
Macarons.
Excellent. Let's get started. All right, Devin, let's tell them about the ingredients that we need to make our macarons. First, we'll be mixing up our dry ingredients, which includes confectioner sugar, almond flour, and a little bit of salt. Then we'll be doing our wet ingredients, which is egg whites, sugar, vanilla extract, and more salt. And finally, we'll be working on our filling for our macarons, which includes confectioner sugar, berry jam, more vanilla extract, some heavy cream, and butter. There are also a few supplies that we need to make our cookies today. We need an electric mixer, a sifter, a spatula, a whisk. We need a couple of mixing bowls, some toothpicks, a baking sheet, and some baking paper. And in France, they speak a beautiful language. Devin, what is it called?
French.
Of course, in France, they speak French. And how do you say good morning or hello in French?
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Every morning, we would greet people around us, and especially each other, by saying bonjour. Would you like to try it at home? In France, there are many different kinds of wonderful cookies that we got to experience, as well as crepes and lots of fresh breads like baguettes. There are so many wonderful baked goods in the country of France. But one of the most loved cookies in the country is this cookie, which is called a macaron. It's made from two different cookies that are squished together by a special filling. And you can make macarons in lots of different ways. You can make them in different colors with different kinds of fillings and flavors. And so today we're going to be making a beautiful pink macaron, and we are going to be making a delicious berry vanilla filling. Yummy, so good. So when we're working through all of this, we're gonna take you through the steps, and we'll be learning lots about France as we go along. So like most cookies, the first thing that we need to do is to mix up our dry ingredients. For macarons, it's very important that we make sure that our ingredients that are dry are properly sifted through. So we are going to sift it 3 different times to make it as smooth and non-chunky as possible. It sounds like a lot of work, but it's really worth it in the end to have a beautiful, smooth cookie. Let's start with our confectioner sugar. Devin, would you put that in the bowl for me?
Yes.
Perfect. We'll get that in there. Next, we'll add our almond flour. Almond flour is made from grinding up a special nut called? Almonds, yes. So that's all that this is, and it's a great replacement for normal flour, and it's the most important special ingredient for making macarons. Devin, go ahead and add our almond flour into our dry mixture. Perfect. And then finally, we'll add just a little bit of salt, not too much, about a half a teaspoon into that dry mixture. Go ahead and put it in there. Okay, Devin, let's go ahead and put this in here. And as we pour it in, we are going to start incorporating it extra special, making it a very thin, sifted, dry texture.
Yes.
And do you see how all those chunky bits are up there? We're gonna keep those in there for now, and we're gonna keep pouring it through. And as we keep sifting it together, those will get less and less, and finally we'll crunch them down using a whisk of our own. So we're gonna keep pushing this through. Do you see how that mixture is getting really nice and incorporated? All of those ingredients are becoming good friends, and they are mixing together perfectly. France is located below the United Kingdom and beside the countries of Belgium and Austria. It's located above the country of Spain. So all of those different countries influence the culture inside the country of France. Paris is the capital of France, and that is located in the northern part of the country, with wonderful places like Normandy to the west and lots of little villages to the east. And down in the south, you've got these big, huge mountains. The Alps are partially located there, and the tallest mountain in the Alps is called Mont Blanc, which is located in France. So we enjoy getting all around the country and seeing the different people and villages and cities and places. And we learned that the country of France is very diverse, so many different kinds of people and cultures, and that's what it makes me think of when we're mixing all of this together. To make great smooth macarons with a great finish to the texture of them, it's very important that we incorporate this dry ingredients again and again to make it really smooth. If you have a food processor, you can put this into the food processor and put it up together that way, but because we don't have one here, we're doing it by hand. So we've done it back and forth twice at this point, and we're gonna do it one more time just for good measure, right? Or times the charm. And we are going to add it for the last time back into the sifter, making it finer and more incorporated each time we do this process. Okay, Devin, good job. We've got 3 rounds of sifting back and forth, and now we've got this wonderfully incorporated dry ingredients that is ready to make macarons. Now it's time to get a little messy. We are going to use our eggs to mix up our wet ingredients together, and this is gonna be really fun because we're gonna use a French baking technique here. So what we're gonna do is crack our eggs on the side of the bowl. Let it go into there, all 3 of them. Good job, nice. Now, we need to separate the yellow part from the white part. This is really important. But what we can't do is let any of the yellow part get into our white eggs, okay? Because it's gonna ruin our egg white. So using clean hands, I've just washed my hands, I'm gonna scoop out the yellow part of the egg, let it white part run through my fingers, and then put the egg yolk into this bowl. All right, so now we are going to mix up our egg whites. We are going to put them into our mixer and get these going. We will put a little bit of salt in them, just a little bit, pour that in, and we'll put our mixer down, and we are going to just whip this into mountain peaks. Takes a while for it to get going, so we will leave it there to do its thing. Okay, it's looking really good. We've got some great stiff mountain peaks happening here.
Yes.
And this has to be so stiff when you mix it that you can turn it upside down and it doesn't fall out. How cool is that? Then you know that your egg white is ready. So now what we're going to do is incorporate our vanilla. So go ahead and put our vanilla into the egg whites. We're going to give that a little stir, not too long, just to get it mixed up together. There we go. And then we'll add the sugar just a little bit at a time. If you put all the sugar in at once, what will happen is it will make all that air that you just put into those egg whites just go flat. You're just gonna miss all that air. So we put it in just a little bit at a time. So we'll add a little touch, and then we'll mix and chat. Okay, so here we are. We've got our glossy egg whites that have been mixed with vanilla and sugar, and we're going to now introduce them to our dry mixture friends. We're going to put this in 1/3 at a time, 1/3, and we're going to use our spatula tool to gently fold this in. In baking, when we fold, it's like we're folding a towel. We have to be very gentle. We don't mix hard like we see over there in the kitchen mixer. We have to mix it very softly. Otherwise, we let all of this wonderful air out of our egg whites, and we don't want to do that. So we'll first go ahead and we'll incorporate just about 1/3 of this in. So I'm just doing a little dump. You can also measure it out if that's easier. And then we're going to mix it together like this. I love how the egg whites form a beautiful peak, and you've got all of these beautiful peaks that happen, and that makes me think of a church high in the city of Paris, the capital of France, and this church is called the Sacré-Cœur. Can you say that?
Sacré-Cœur.
Yes, translated into English, that means the Sacred Heart. And on this mountaintop at this church was a very important place. There was a very important person there who was actually martyred, which means killed. And so it was called the Martyrs' Hill for a long time, and they built a church there. See how I've mixed that all up together?
Yes.
We loved visiting Sacré-Cœur because you get this gorgeous view of Paris. From the very top, it's sitting high on the hill overlooking Paris, and you can see all across the city. We were able to go into the church and explore the history of it, to light a candle, to be able to study some of the things that have happened there, and we loved running up and down the steps of the church and looking over the city of Paris. So we are working on our macaronage, which is the making of the macaron cookie dough. So when I look at this metal bowl, it reminds me of something that we saw a lot of in Paris. Do you know what it was?
Love locks?
Love locks, yes. on lots of the bridges and on top of the mountain next to Sacré-Cœur, we saw lots of people had left these little locks attached to fences. And because Paris is called the city of love, lots of people who are in love go to the city for romantic vacations. And so they take these padlocks, or you can buy them there, they write their initials on them or their names, and they go and attach them to different places in Paris, which is really not good for the environment at all, but it is a cultural tradition. So people will add their love locks to the bridges, and it means that their love is locked forever. And sometimes they even throw the key into the river, which runs through the middle of Paris, called La Seine. So to reach the Macaronage stage, we need to do a very special little trick. We are going to test our macaronage to see if we can make a figure 8. It's supposed to look a little bit like lava when it's ready, it's done. So if lava's flowing, we know that it's got a nice sort of consistency to it, and so we need to pick up our spatula and we need to move the dough like this in the shape of a figure 8. And if we can do that, we know that the cookie dough is ready. Devin, what's your favorite color?
Pink.
Pink! I love pink! And in Paris, pink is a really important color. When we think of Paris, we often think of black and pink, and so we've got some pink flowers, and we decided that today we want to color our macarons in the color of pink because it's Parisian. I'm going to put 2 drops of food coloring into my macaron dough, and once I get it in there, maybe 3 for good measure, I'm gonna mix it up. Usually this should be done actually before we incorporated the dry ingredients in, but we can do it now too. The next thing that we are going to do is to pipe our macarons onto our baking sheet. But usually you would use a piping bag. If you have one at home, you can use that with a tip of some kind, usually a number 2 or a number 6. But if you don't have that, you can use a plain Ziploc bag, find the corner of it with your finger there, and then you can use a big cup or something like this to put it into here as a holder. And then we are going to put our cookie dough into here, and then we're going to use this as our piping bag.
Yes.
Isn't that a fun trick?
Yes.
Okay, Devin, you hold that, and I am going to put the cookie dough into the bag, and we are going to use this to pipe our cookies. I'm so excited. Are you so excited to try these?
Yes.
Macarons are the best, they really are. Okay, so here we have filled our Ziploc bag with our cookie dough, and we're going to find the end, and we're just gonna cut off the tip so that the cookie dough can be piped onto here. Obviously, if you have a baking bag and you're able to use a proper piping bag to do that, but not everyone has that, so we just wanted to show you this option as well. So I'm gonna cut it here, just a little tip off. In baking, when we have something squeezing out of a bag like this, it's called piping. Now, we don't want our macarons to be too big because they will grow in the oven. And so usually they're about 1.5 inches thick, and we want them to be in a round shape, and we want to pipe it in a circular motion. Now, the country of France is actually an interesting shape. It's called a hexagon. Devin, do you know what a hexagon is? How many sides a hexagon has?
5.
Pretty close. 6 actually. If you look at the shape of the country of France, it's got 6 points, and so they call it la hexagon. Okay, so I want to try to get as many on this sheet as I can, but I don't want them to be too close together or too big. And I'm going to come back and kind of fix their shape a little bit at the end. Getting that piping just right, Devin, I'm going to have you do the last row there. I know it's not easy to do because you're a kid, but we believe that all kids can bake even fancy things like macarons, so why not try, right? Very gentle, very slowly, not too much on top of each other. Good, now just let that rest. Good job, Devin. Is it hard?
Yeah,
You
kinda.
can do it. Here comes one of my favorite parts. When we're making macarons, we have to make sure there's no air bubbles in it. So it's really important that we give it a good smack. We're gonna smack it, okay? So I'm gonna lift this up. I'm gonna hold the baking paper with 2 fingers so that it doesn't wiggle because we don't want them flying everywhere. And I'm gonna give it a big smash on the count. You ready? Hold your ears. Here we go. Should we do it one more time?
Yeah.
Here we go, everyone. Yeah, you get to do that. Make some noise. What's happening here is all the air bubbles that are stuck in the cookies are popping. When I make that big crash, it pops, and then it makes a smooth finish to the cookie. So when we finish our macarons, we don't want any big puffy air bubbles, and we definitely don't want our cookies to collapse. So one more time, a big crack, hold your ears. 1, 2, 3, and crack. And try, and wow, that was a big noise. Okay, even though we gave it some good cracking and it got some of the air bubbles out, there might be a few left. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use toothpicks to just pop a few of the air bubbles. Try not to mess it up, the smooth finish, but if you see any bubbles, we just give it a little poke and make sure that they're all nice and flat and smooth. And it will cover back over. We are going to leave this to sit for about 30 minutes. Any more that need to be popped? You're doing great. I see a few more here and there. And over the course of 30 minutes to an hour, we're going to take a break and let our cookies just kind of settle. If there's any more bubbles that need to be popped, we can do that then. But what we're looking for is for it to have a really smooth finish. We will know that they're ready to be baked when we can touch them and run our finger over it, and it's not going to mess up the surface of the cookie, and it's not going to stick to our finger, and that's gonna take a little while. So we're gonna put these to the side. We'll talk a little bit more about France, and we'll come back to it after an hour. At home, give it 30 minutes to 60 minutes, and then they'll be ready to put in the oven. When it's about 15 minutes to baking time, we need to preheat our oven to 300 degrees, and wait for it to get to be that perfect temperature to cook our macarons. Because if it is too hot or too cold, they will collapse. And when it comes to baking, when we put it into the oven, we never want to open the oven while it's baking, because what will happen is it will deflate our cookies and they will just look terrible. So make sure that as much as you want to have a peek in there, don't do it. And put a timer on for 17 minutes when you're baking your cookies. Okay, friends, our macarons are looking gorgeous. So are you, darling. If you run your finger over the top of it, you can feel that it's very silky smooth. There's no bubbles, air bubbles whatsoever. They look really nice, and they've created almost a silky kind of film over the top of it, and that means they're ready to bake. Our oven has been preheated to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is ready. We are going to put them into the oven for exactly 17 minutes, and in those 17 minutes, we must not open the oven at all. What happens if we open the oven for cookies like this that are made from egg whites or any kind of a meringue? Lots of the French baking dishes have egg whites in them. And when you use egg whites, there's lots of light, fluffy air inside there. If you open the oven, it changes the temperature in the cookie as it's baking, and it will deflate or it will go flat. It's almost like letting the air out of a balloon, and we don't want that to happen, right?
Yes.
So we put it in the oven for 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 17 minutes. My favorite thing to eat in France is macarons, but what is your favorite thing to eat in France?
Crepes?
Crepes, of course. Any special filling in the crepes that you like?
Nutella?
Yeah, that's a good one. When you are in Paris, and in fact lots of parts of France, you will find these little crepe stands sort of all over the city. Crepes are made kind of like pancakes, but very flat and very big, right? Like if you were to draw it, it would be a big, huge circle. And they're cheap. They're just maybe $2 equivalent. In Europe, they use the euro, including in France as well. And if you go to get a crepe, you can get it with all kinds of fillings. Savory, like something with chicken or mushrooms, or you can get it with a sweet filling with a jam kind of filling, or strawberries, like you said, Nutella, which is chocolate and hazelnut. And they will just make them for you on the spot. They make a big, huge crepe, they fold it over, they put the filling inside, they put it into a little packet, and you can walk through the streets of Paris eating a warm, delicious crepe. It's just the best thing. The Palace of Versailles is the most incredible palace we've ever seen anywhere in the world, and I've been to almost 50 countries. The palace is exquisite. It is so beautiful. Outside, the gates are made of, it looks like gold. They're just shiny and gorgeous. And inside, there's a hall called the Hall of Mirrors. There's over 300 mirrors in the Hall of Mirrors. And we had so much fun walking around, looking up at the paintings on the ceiling, these beautiful frescoes that were painted. The people who lived there, the kings and queens of France who lived in the Palace of Versailles, really had a lot to look at. There was over 6,000 paintings in the palace. Can you imagine? That's a lot of artwork. And they had more than 200 servants who took care of them. From everything everything they did. They woke up in the morning and it was a grand production. Every single thing they did was marked in the history records. Everyone was watching them. Everyone was paying attention to every move they made. When Marie Antoinette lived there, everything she wore was taken up by the media. Everyone was talking about it. Little girls wanted to dress like their queen. Everyone just thought they were so fancy. Marie Antoinette even had her own private house on the palace grounds. And Marie Antoinette had her own little house, wasn't little actually, where she could go and kind of feel that she was away from the palace life, and she had her own special place to rest and talk to her friends outside of everybody watching her every move. Devin, what are some of the wonderful French foods that you can think of?
French toast, croissants, and French fries.
Okay, well, you know, those do sound like they're French. Certainly croissants are eaten all over France, but actually here's a fun fact. They were from Austria. They're not even French, but they're certainly well loved in France, definitely. Now let's think about French toast. French toast is also not from France. There's evidence that French toast was around in the Roman Empire, so it's actually Italian. And then what was the other one you said? French fries?
Yes.
French fries are not actually from France at all. They're from the neighboring country of Belgium. The story about that is that there was a war and there was an American soldier and a Belgian soldier that were working together in the war, and the Belgian soldier made some French fries, although it didn't have a name back then, it was just these potatoes that he liked to make, and the American soldier knew that he spoke French because they speak French in Belgium, and he just started calling them French fries, and the whole world ever since then has called them French fries. So let's talk about what we are going to use in our filling. We are going to make a kind of a purpley filling because it's made with a purple jam. So we've got our confectioner sugar, which we will go ahead and dump into our mixer here. And we're gonna blend that together with our room temperature butter. If you touch it, you can see it's kind of soft. We don't want to use hard butter, otherwise it's not gonna work. And if we use melted butter, also it won't have a good consistency. So let's go ahead and put that into our tray here. Let's go ahead and get our butter and our sugar incorporated. We've got our great confectioner sugar, which is this nice fine ingredient. It always gives this very delicious flavor. So here we're making our filling. We've got the sugar and the butter incorporating. And as soon as they get all nicely mixed together, we'll add some milk or some heavy cream. Either one of those will work. That will just give it some wetness, so it will start to form a little bit of a ball. We're going to add our vanilla and our jam as well. Go. Here we go. We will add our vanilla. And you go ahead and put that in there. There's our jam. That's gonna give it that beautiful purple color and some flavor, of course. Lots of whole berries in there. So yummy. In the L'Orangerie, there's a famous set of paintings called the Water Lilies, and it's a huge collection. They've got a bunch there, and they're really beautiful. Can you remember which famous painter it was that painted that collection?
Claude Monet.
Very good, yes. Claude Monet had this beautiful set of paintings done, and he specifically wanted it to be presented in an oval-shaped room, which I think is so cool. Most paintings are presented flat as a canvas that's framed on a wall, and it's a rectangle or a square. His are in fact a rectangle, but they're on a curved wall. So as you walk through these two oval-shaped rooms, it makes almost a figure 8. And you can see these paintings that are just jaw-dropping, and as you walk by them, you actually feel like you're at this pond where all these water lilies live. I think it's one of the most beautiful art experiences I've ever had in a museum. Did you love it too?
Yes.
It was just so beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead and have a taste. Good or no?
Good.
Really good, right? So we're gonna make kind of like a sandwich with our macarons and our berry filling. One of the best places in all of France is the Eiffel Tower. Most of the time when you say the word Paris, you think of the Eiffel Tower,
Yeah.
right? And so the first thing that we wanted to do the very day that we got to Paris, after we had some rest, we had to go and visit the Eiffel Tower. The guy who designed the Eiffel Tower was named Gustave Eiffel. Can you try that?
Gustave Eiffel.
Right, he was an artist himself, really, an engineer, an architect, and he designed the Eiffel Tower in such an amazing way. When he started making the tower and it was going up, it actually was so kind of industrial and hard and cold looking, made of all this metal, that the people who lived in Paris hated it and they just wanted him to take it down. They thought it was the most awful thing. Well, turns out years later, today, everybody thinks of France and they think of the Eiffel Tower. And we had so much fun climbing the Eiffel Tower and exploring it at night, especially when the lights came on and it was full of sparkles, and there's a carousel across the street so you can ride the carousel. It was just incredible. Did you love the Eiffel Tower?
Yes.
So beautiful. Why don't we build some towers of our own? What do you think?
Yes.
Great. Grab a cookie. Put it in your hand, be very careful, they're delicate. Grab a spoon, and we're gonna take some of the filling and just go ahead and put it in the middle of our cookie. Spread it around a little bit, get it to the edges, but not too much, because this is a very rich cookie as it is. Go ahead and put that in there. You got it. Good, and then we'll take a top and we'll put it just like that, so it creates kind of a sandwich. That looks good. Go ahead and get a top for your cookie. Great work.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And how is it?
Très bien.
Très bien. Very good. That means very good in French. I'm so proud of you for remembering your French. So I hope that all of you at home will enjoy your French macarons, and I would love to see all the beautiful colors that you create. You can use any color you like. You can use purple, pink, green, blue, any color is fine. Play around with the flavors and the colors and enjoy. Thank you so much for joining us today on Taste the World. We hope you enjoyed visiting the country of France and making delicious French macarons. We'll see you again soon. Au revoir!